So I'm going to go on to a next question, sort of originating from that. In your professional opinion, what were the parameters governing success before BG Scribe Writer could be deployed within the company?
Mm-hmm. So obviously refining it and getting a good output from it was the biggest thing. So whenever I first created it this time last year, it wasn't very strong. It's because it's first draft. It's never going to be right the first time. So obviously you're not going to deploy it then. You need to kind of work through it, train it like any AI model. You train it, you teach it, you go through it, you see its mistakes, you update it, you fix it. So that's what I did, and kind of took a break from it for a good 4 or 5 months. To be honest, I forgot about it. I was doing other things, and then I came back to it a few weeks ago there, and just updated it from when I'd last updated it, maybe last September, October it had been last updated. Yep. So obviously there's lots more things we've learned. There's lots more things that are relevant these days. So I just put those into it, updated it, and it's working very strongly now. You
can see why my iterative planning was there. I remember you being frustrated. I think it was at September, and I said, right, that's it, park it. With Callum, because I knew that the technology hadn't got to a stage whereby there was sufficient, the MCP hadn't even been identified. We were still talking about which one is going to go with it, because that had been the past way. You always have competition, Google, Microsoft, the browsers and whatever. That had always been the way software had come out. It was like a competitive environment. But with the MCP, all of a sudden, the Model Context Protocol, it became, right, there's been an agreement, there's been a convergence. Now you can really develop on it. But what was interesting is that the skills that you developed within here and took it to a certain stage, you could see where it would get blocked. You could also see things that were useful and reaffirming to you. And when it came to picking it up, you had a much higher starting point, and therefore you're able to bring it to, even now, I don't think it is what is perfect.
No.
But
it's a lot closer to it than it was.
But the parameters governing success, one of the parameters I said to you is that one of the company directors, English literature degree, it needed to be more than a fifth. You know, the way everything has been dumbed down. Okay, read it as like best practices, like a fifth grader. And we said, no, that should not be the way it is.
Yeah.
And so I said, if a English literature graduate is able to read that and is able to say, this is my voice or the voice of another director, it is correct grammatically. It's interesting, it's useful to the customer, and it answers a number of issues that a customer may have and positions our company within that in a way whereby it reads perfectly. And I couldn't even tell you that it is AI. That was the parameter of success, wasn't it? It's a very high threshold of success. And what did the director say yesterday about it?
She liked it. She was impressed. Yeah.
Yeah. She could not tell which one was generated by BG Scribe Writer and which one was generated by a collection of other people. It was indeterminate. It was indecipherable what the difference was. So as a result of that, that means that it is following our personality, our philosophy, the way that we talk, the way that we speak, and that gives it a good base point upon which to be iteratively generative and progressive, doesn't it? Because it means that we're not bringing in nonsense or anything else.
But the biggest thing I'd say that got it to that point was the refinement of the system instructions. That's the biggest bit in doing a GPT like this, because the prompts don't really matter anymore. Well, obviously they matter a bit, but nowhere near as much as it would be if you were just doing it normally, because this is all programmed in. It knows what you're going to ask. It's expecting it. So whenever I was doing the system prompts, things I found successful was giving it the headings like I'd mentioned there earlier. So examples of what the headings I've given it. So I think the first one I have is mission. So that's basically refining or kind of summarizing its objective, what it's doing. So it's something about that is there to create blogs. That's its mission. They should be SEO-able. Bringing that in just so it's able to keep the keywords and the questions.
Keep on topic.
Another one is its persona. So who it is, what its aim is, what its role is, to kind of give it that identity.
Did you give it freedom and say, you're just an expert writer?
No, I said, you're BG Scribe, you work for Basket Score.
Big difference.
You are world-renowned SEO, something along that, something really hyping it up. So that one. And then personality, giving it things about itself. So things that it likes, things that it doesn't do. Where it's from, one of them that I have in there is that it's from the UK, so it writes in British English, not American English.
Okay.
There's obviously the spelling difference. That's one thing you come across a lot in ChatGPT. It's always Americanized. And then it's rules and behavior. So things, again, this is more things you definitely don't want it to do. So don't bring in these kind of words. Don't there's so many in there, I can't even think about it. But just rules and behavior in general of things that doesn't
little nuances, experiential nuances.
Silly things that you wouldn't think about putting in unless you'd used it and seen it and thought, don't do that. So you put it in. And then the main one, which is the workflow, which is basically a step-by-step of how it should make the blog, how it should go through, what it should be asking the user. So starting by, okay, are you creating a blog, a landing page, category page? What's the keyword? What's the secondary keywords? All stuff so it can form the SEO-able kind of side, which is always important in a blog because that's really a main point of you wanting to put them on your website. For creating questions are very important. We like to include about between 9 and 11 questions per blog, feathered in throughout. Some are headers, some are within the text. Just depending on the kind of layout, whichever way is fine. And then another big one was getting it to write it in sections. So instead of once it's got the blog outline, you don't just want it to fire on, give you the full blog. You want it to write in sections. You want to be able to control it. You want to be able to see if it's coming out with a good output. If it's not, okay, rewrite that. Do this different, do that. So then you're not doing the entire thing. You're doing it in sections. And generally, if you change something in one section, it will then carry that on throughout. So you're not going back and doing it, if you know what I mean.
Okay. Well, what you've really described the process there, in terms of its development, and there's really, really good steps there towards that procession. Timeline, I think you've alluded to leaving things down. Is that something that you would advise? Is to do this and take it to a particular stage rather than grinding through it? What would be your advice on that in terms of a timeline in particular?
Well, with the process and the timeline, obviously you've got to start somewhere. You've got to see how long it's going to take. I feel like people tend to underestimate how long things like this take, because with AI, there's so much human input that needs done that people don't really think about unless you're making them. People tend to think, oh great, AI, it does it like that, it's fine. But not when you're making one. You need to put all the hours in, you need to put the time in. So timeline wise, I would say the best thing to do is just start it, see how far you get. If you're not getting anywhere, park it, leave it, come back to it. Don't just waste time with it constantly if it's not getting anywhere, because maybe with the thing that you wanted to do, you just need to wait for the next release of the GBT. You need to wait for the next one. You need to wait for the ChatGPT 5 or 6. So I would say just park it, wait. If it's not working, try something else. If it's still not working, park it and wait. This
runs contrary to what an awful lot actually goes on here in terms of computer programming doing this, whereby they don't like to park things or leave things or let stuff catch up. They tend to be more, there is my goal, fixated on it, and keep on then what I would call sort of hacking to find a workaround to get to that objective. Do you envisage that being a good strategy to deploy, or are we going to have to change how we approach problem solving with the AI? Because so many of the people that are good at this tend to be computer programmers. Are we moving in an area whereby a computer programmer is actually a problem?
I wouldn't say they're a problem, because obviously everyone and their backgrounds have their different strengths and weaknesses. Like myself, I have no coding background. I have no computer science background. I don't know how to do that. You give me a code, I don't know what to do with it.
Yes.
Whereas things like this, I'm very good at. I enjoy it. I know where I need to go with it. I understand it. So I think it just depends on the task.
The reason why I asked that question is that it's very interesting in the sense that there's two other programmers here in the company. There's Callum and there's Wembo Zhu. To me, asking that question with you in the center of it, controlling a couple of programmers, the cumulative effect of that trifecta of teamwork is probably much more, it's going to achieve much more than giving it en masse to just a programmer or just an engineer. Your background is engineering.
I definitely agree because, what I feel like what we have found with the two programmers that we have, they're not as creative as someone who doesn't have that background to be. They're very kind of focused on the task, strict kind of, okay, this is what I need to do and this is how I'm going to do it. There's no kind of, oh, what if I did it this way? Well, there's a bit of that, but you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
There's no kind of creative of like the coming up with the new ideas and the doing it this way and doing it that way. Whereas that's where somebody with a different background like myself would come in to kind of give these aspects, give these perspectives, give these ideas. And then that would kind of prompt them to then be like, oh, right, okay, we can maybe do it like this or do it like that. Whereas on their own thinking, they may struggle a bit more to come up with the fresh ideas.
Okay, that's very interesting in terms of the sort of dynamic of personality that is a potential leader in terms of this type of agentic development.